Planning zoning meeting to order. Would everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. John Matthews.
Here.
Terry Bukowski.
Here.
Mark Denny.
Here.
Alex Tomorrow.
Here.
Wolf Smith.
Here.
Rocky Hempel.
Here.
Jeanette Holloman. Jeff Spink.
Here.
And I'm present, Steve Rosenthal, so all 9 members are present. Do I have a approval of last month's minutes?
So moved. Second.
Second. A motion on the floor, second. Approve the minutes as written. Any discussion? Not have a roll call vote. John Matthews?
Yes.
Terry Bukowski?
Yes.
Mark Denny?
Yes.
Alex Tomorrow?
Yes.
Will Smith?
Yes.
Rocky Hempel?
Yes.
Jeanette Holloman?
Yes.
Jeff Spink?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 9-0. Secretary's report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Tonight is, of course, a special meeting to go over the Leavenworth County Comprehensive Plan that we've been working on for the last year and a half. I believe many of you have been very involved in that, and we appreciate it very, very much. As you may recall, I sent this out a few weeks ago and said if you have any questions, just let me know. I have prepared a staff report that I believe answers the very few questions that I did receive. And, of course, if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them tonight, and I will do my best to answer them. A couple of housekeeping items. I know that several of you were signed up for the the virtual planning conference. Have any of you been able to log into that?
Haven't tried.
Okay. So, Terry, you were able to log in. Okay, perfect, wonderful. That is going through till tomorrow. However, you can go back and watch the sessions later. They will become available. I believe I wouldn't check until probably Monday or Tuesday. They're going to go ahead and keep them up for a year. That same login information that you have should work. If it does not work, I know one of you, it's not working for you, please let me know. I will email the committee and try to get you set up. There are lots and lots of videos and such to be watched. There were about 6 of them that were specifically for planning commissioners. You are free to watch all of the webinars that you would like, but those 6 are obviously the ones that are most pertinent to this board. And then the final thing, we obviously have our regular meeting next Wednesday, October 14th. And then just to put it in your minds, our November meeting will be on Thursday because Wednesday is Veterans Day, so it'll be the day after our normal meeting, just to put that out there. Next week,
The day after or before?
the day after our regular meeting. Right? Mm-hmm. Correct. Okay. That's okay. Commissioners, I believe that's all that I have.
Okay. We have a motion on the agenda. There's one item on it.
Chairman, I recommend or make a motion that we accept the regular agenda, including DEV 20-109, adoption of the 2020 comprehensive plan.
I'll second that.
We have a motion on the floor to second to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Joe Matthews?
Yes.
Terry Bukowski?
Yes.
Mark Denny?
Yes.
Alex Tomorrow?
I did have a question or two, if I may ask.
This is just for the agenda.
About the agenda?
This is just the agenda.
Oh, yes. I have some questions about the comp plan.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get there. This is just the agenda we're voting.
Okay.
Okay. You vote yes on
Yes.
that? Okay. Will Smith?
Yes.
Rocky Hempel?
Yes.
Jeanette Holloman?
Yes.
Jeff Spink?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 9-0. Okay, on to the item. Case number DEV 20-109, consideration adoption of the 2020 Leavenworth County Comprehensive Plan. Request submitted by planning and zoning staff. It does require a public hearing. Public comment portion is listed to 3 minutes per person. Staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Again, this is the Leavenworth County Comprehensive Plan. As you all know, the county began working with a consulting firm, Olson, in the spring of 2019 in order to update our existing 2008 comprehensive plan. In doing so, we have engaged in substantial public outreach. There was a visioning meeting. There were focus groups. There were deep dives. We had an open house. We had a survey that was available for several months online, and through that we received significant input. We also put together a stakeholder committee and a technical committee. The stakeholder committee was comprised of anyone who lived or worked in Leavenworth County and wanted to be part of the stakeholder committee. That was a little bit different than we have done it in the past. Typically in the past, what we have done is staff has identified people that we felt would be good members for a stakeholder committee. However, people get left out when we do that. So this time we just opened it up and said, if you want to be part of this, be part of it. And we ended up having about 60 people who were part of the stakeholder and steering committee. The technical committee was more focused on developers, engineers, people who were experts in water and energy and that sort of thing. Again, over the course of the summer, we engaged in substantial input. We had an open house. We took all of that information and we modified the plan several times, and then we brought it before this board about a year ago now, I suppose, and provided you with the initial draft, and then we took that information and took it to the Board of County Commissioners, gathered additional information, and then modified it again. So this has been an ongoing process where there's been lots of input to get to this final plan. It is not a perfect plan. There's no such thing as a perfect plan. I know that everybody will have, some issues with it, some things that we want to change. It's very important to remember that unlike some things, the comprehensive plan is a living document. It is meant to guide development over the next 20 or so years. As development occurs and infrastructure is extended, parts of the plan may have to be adjusted. So if you see something and you feel like, oh, well, that seems really rigid or that doesn't seem rigid enough, remember, it can be modified. And in fact, that's one of the things that is a personal goal of mine. What I would like to do is I would like to identify, after we have adopted the plan, to identify 3 or 5 goals, which are in the back of the plan in Chapter 7 in implementation, things that we need to get done. There are several things in there, as you all know because you've read this plan, that we need to get done. We can't do all of that all at one time, but we can put it in a priority list, which the consultants have been really great at helping us to do. If you took a look at that matrix, it essentially said, this is what we need to do, this is who needs to do it, here are barriers to implementation, and this is about how long we think it should take to get this done. So it's a really great starting framework. I think that we should all sit down and we should go through that after the plan has been adopted and say, these are the things we're going to do. And then in a year's time, my office, you all, our Board of County Commissioners, we will work to achieve the goals that we have set forth. Hopefully we will achieve all of them. We might not, and that's okay. So that at the end of the year, we'll have a meeting and we'll discuss what went right, what went wrong, what did we need to change, did we need to change some of our priorities. And it's my goal that that become a revolving process that we do every year and that we have meetings on within that year to have check-ins. How is it coming along? I believe that's something that has not taken place for a very long time. And that's what causes a plan to just go up on a shelf and it not get followed. And we don't want that. We spent too much time, money, and effort to do that. Agree? Great. So, with that being said, as you know, I think one of the most important aspects of the plan is the future land use map. And that's certainly, sorry, you can't handle that anymore. That is certainly the thing that most people, turn to and look at first. And that's understandable. It's very easy to read. It's pretty clear cut. Again, I want to remind you that it is a living document. There are parts of it that will change. There are parts of it that in the future just maybe won't make sense, but we don't know that yet simply because, as Donald Rumsfeld said, we don't know what we don't know. However, we will get there. That being said, we also, as you know, we have added a couple of different zoning categories. We currently have our R2.5 and our R5, which you are all very familiar with. This plan also calls for mixed use, mixed residential, and 3 units per acre. All 3 of those zoning districts are going to be dependent heavily upon the extension of sanitary sewer. As you are aware, the extension of sanitary sewer is quite unlikely to happen via the county commission because the county commission feels that currently That should be up to the city, which I could not agree more at this current time. So it will be up to the cities to extend sanitary sewer in order for us to achieve parts of this plan. That being said, it will be up to my office to work closely with the cities to determine where that extension should happen, to have a close-knit relationship with the cities in order to have a positive working relationship going forward. So that's what we plan on doing. We also have identified a couple of items that we believe need to be addressed. We do not have a transportation plan, and we don't have an infrastructure plan. This plan did look at a very high level of those things, and essentially what we've identified is eventually we need to have especially a transportation plan done, where we need to really focus down on the infrastructure that we have, the infrastructure that we need, and where we're growing. That will, of course, be up to the Board of County Commissioners. I bring this up because I have had a few questions about why there wasn't more focus on transportation, and it's simply because that just wasn't really within the scope. So it was a very high-level overview of that. And again, the implementation, which we've already spoken about, the matrix, which I think is a great matrix. I think it provides a lot of really great goals and strategies, and also really helps to define who should be responsible for those items. All that being said, I obviously recommend approval of this comprehensive plan. I will answer any questions that you may have, and I believe we have 2 people signed up for public comment.
Okay, any questions of staff so far?
Can we address some of these things in the plan right now, or
Why don't we go through the public hearing portion first and then bring it up after that, because we might get some good public input that we might want.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I hate to interrupt, but if I could follow up on Crystal's comments as far as this being a living document. Crystal, unless they've changed it, by law, the county is supposed to annually review its comprehensive plan. That law is probably, like speeding laws, widely disregarded. And I would hope that in the future, with the adoption of this plan, bring the county up to a level that annual review would take place, because that's a very important function of this body and also of the Board of County Commissioners. So knowing it's not a perfect document, and also knowing that it is living and subject to review and in theory and in fact by law to be reviewed annually, I just wanted, if I could reinforce that point.
Okay. All right. All right. Upon opening the public comment portion of this hearing, those of you who wish to speak either for or against this item upon recognition will give your name and address each time you begin to speak. This is necessary since the public hearing is being recorded. Also remember you're allowed 3 minutes per person. The public comment portion of this hearing is now open. We will now hear from individuals present wishing to speak in favor or opposition to this request. In favor or opposition. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Ann Brockhoff. My address is 21060 Loring Road in Linwood, and I am here representing Rural Leavenworth, Inc. We are generally in favor of the comprehensive plan, and we would like to thank the county for the tremendous resources they've committed to this process and their willingness to bring the public in to the conversation, and we agree it's not a perfect document. So, I'm pleased to hear Crystal's comments about it being a living document and one that can be updated and altered as needed and as the situations change. I guess I do have a couple of questions that speak to intent. One is how this will actually be used. How flexible is it? You talk about the intent to update and to adapt. I don't know how much of this plan is sort of seen as a foregone conclusion. I think that another concern that we have, or question we have, is the speed of implementation. It seems that some items, such as recommendation to rezone the County Road 1 development district, seems to be something that the commission would like to move ahead on fairly quickly. Meanwhile, Crystal references the land use map with some things like 3 units per acre that may or may not come about until there is infrastructure. And so I think we have some concern on how these things are reconciled and that different parts of the county are treated equally, and if getting infrastructure like sanitary sewer is a priority in some cases, should that infrastructure also be a priority before changing zoning in other areas of the county as well? So, just looking at some of those implementation strictures as well. Then also, I love that the plan will be reviewed and updated, but I wonder how involved the public will be in that process, if the public will have the opportunity to have input into those annual reviewing and update process. So I think that we do have some concerns, mostly making sure that those who own property within the county have their rights respected, and then also have an opportunity to be involved as those updates take place. But for the most part, thank you so much for the effort that you have put in.
Well, I'm sure there'll be public hearings, won't there?
Correct. So, so to address that, the first thing is that this website will stay live.
Okay.
So it's not going to go away. The email list that we have is an email list that we will continue to have, and we can make it a priority when we are getting close to the time to begin reviewing the document, that we can send out, an email blast. And yes, just like with the adoption of it, the review of it and the continued implementation of it requires a public hearing. As Mr. Van Paris stated, that needs to occur on a yearly basis according to state statute. So it will be an agenda item, it will be a public hearing item. And as always, if there are any questions or concerns, you can always email our office about it, and those are things that we can handle. And then as to your question about County Road 1, that land use study was already completed. I think we're going on 4 years now since it's been completed, maybe 3. The Board of County Commissioners has expressed a fairly strong willingness and desire to rezone that corridor. I believe we have been given pretty clear direction to move forward with that. However, it has also been agreed upon that we would not move forward with that until this plan has been adopted. However, that is direction from the Board of County Commissioners.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor or opposition?
Good evening, Commission. Joe Herring, 16630 Gilman Road. Agree with Crystal. It would be nice if the transportation and sanitary sewer plant could have been done first. I think that would have cleared up a lot of my concerns with the map. If you could, can you get to page 75? I'm pretty sure it's 75. On the comprehensive, the overall plan. I think that plan, when I confront and talk to them about it, they said it's just a snapshot, a bird's eye view. But there are some areas that they really didn't look into and take concern. Topographic wasn't really looked at. Areas that were zoned, let's say light industrial or business, are now put into an R2.5 or an R5 zone, which in essence could devalue their property, and not knowing how hard it will be with this comp plan in place for them to use the current zoning is a concern, and the difficulty trying to get through, because we spend a lot of money, tax dollars, on this comp plan, a lot of time, and we want to be able to try to follow it to the best of the ability that we can. I don't feel like the technical committee and the other committee was used to their abilities once we got through the initial county meetings. It seems like everything was just went away for a while, and then a new plan appeared. I wish that would have been a little different. And if it is comp planned at an R3U, will it still be viewed that those property owners who might be zoned differently now, can they, like if they're zoned 2.5, can they still go in and go 2.5 now if infrastructure is not there? Is there going to be a viewpoint from this committee and staff that, hey, you got to hold up, we're going to preserve this for higher density?
So, sorry, go ahead, are you finished?
Oh,
What do you
no. No, but you can go ahead and answer.
No, you got your 3 minutes, go for it.
They did honor the Board of County Commissioners' wishes and take hard surface roads and do 2.5 zoning along them to best use what infrastructure we do have in the county, which is our roads, and the ability to create some estate lots. Except I read the document, or that portion of it, I didn't find a set width on that. Quarter mile, it is set width. And the only problem that really comes into if a quarter mile wide on each side, or is it quarter mile center line, or quarter mile wide?
Quarter mile wide, but then in areas where it created an awkward gap, those gaps were filled in as RR2.
So you got 660 on each side to do. So what you're talking about there on 2.5 acre lots, stripping them off the roads. Well, we already know that collectors, arterials, state highways, you're going to be very limited on driveways, so that becomes kind of a hard deal. You need to be a little deeper. Each road needs to have a different width. It needs to be looked into a little harder. So
Within a quarter mile of each side of the center line.
each mile. Okay.
That was quarter mile each side.
That was 3 minutes? Well, that sure goes fast. It didn't go that way in high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Answer a question for me.
I don't know what the question was.
Can they?
Oh, yeah, so it's
Okay,
important
well.
to remember, it's important to remember that this is a future land use map. This does not change the zoning. So if you are currently zoned RR 2.5, which we should have, if there should have been no down zoning in this. Now, it's possible that maybe 1 or 2 B3 properties, which I will go back and look because that was direction from the Board of County Commissioners. I believe there's one pretty small B3 property up in the very north part of the county, which I am looking at. It looks like it has not been kept as B3. That needs to be amended. That definitely needs to be amended. I missed that. Sorry, it's a small property. However, if it was already zoned as B2 or B3 or light industrial, it needs to remain as such. So that is an amendment that I will have them make on this map before it goes to the Board of County Commissioners. That was directed by the Board of County Commissioners. So that does need to be amended. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
You're welcome. We didn't get talking about 1 acre.
Nope.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor or opposition? I take it there's none. They told me there was only 2. Any additional information to be presented?
No, sir.
Public comment portion of this hearing is now closed. Any questions or comments, commissioners?
Crystal,
Who wants to start? You want to start? Okay.
Crystal, I got 5 things, but
Okay.
I'll start with the easy one. I've been doing this on my computer, and it's hard to tell on the maps what areas are what. The one you got up right now has got 2 pink areas, and I can't tell which one is which. You got some others. If you go there, you got the residential 3 units, and then the Leavenworth County Road 1 plan. I can't tell which is which.
Okay. So that's
Yeah.
it's
And there's-
difficult to read then.
Yeah, Stephanie and I were talking about that, and she said printed out it's even worse. I don't know. Alex has got one sitting in front of him. I don't know how bad it is.
Let me help you.
Then there's another one, I think it has got 3 different shades of green. And I can't tell which is which.
Do you remember which map that was?
You got it?
So
No, that's one we got up right there.
this is all County Road 1. It has white lines in it. The rest of this is all solid pink.
Yeah,
Give them the page number.
but that's
74.
one
Yeah,
wrong
that's
right
the
there. One
land
wrong.
use map. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Bartkowski, I have looked at that 1,000 times, and I mean, yeah, I saw the lines in it, but I can see
You're-
what you're saying.
you're used
that
to it.
The colors are pretty similar.
There's another one, I don't know, what do you got on page 80? No, that's, I don't remember what page it was for sure, but you got one that's got 3 different shades of green.
Do you remember what the map was about?
It's one of these maps. Like that.
Big deal.
Okay. All right.
I should have noted that, what's that one?
This is the future land use map, but I can go back and
That's the important one, right?
well, I mean, they're all important maps, but yes, this is the one everybody
I
cares
think
the
it may
most
be the
about.
one that's the zoning one. I don't remember, but it just, I sit there and
Well,
I stared at it and I
if
said,
it's
I
the-
couldn't figure it out.
So if it's the one that shows the current zoning, for whatever reason, when our zoning was implemented, 2 green colors were chosen. So that is what we currently use. So if it's that one, yes, I know it is very frustrating.
Well, before this is finished, can those be changed? Go to magenta or something. So they should have distinct colors. There should be no colors that are similar.
Crystal, these maps should be digitalized. You might just require stronger contrasting colors.
Yeah.
to be used.
Yeah, that's absolutely what I would.
Because I'm looking at them digitally, and I got it, and I've got a good screen, but Stephanie says they're even worse when you print them out.
Sure.
I think page 74 is the map that's up there, on page 74.
74, it's got 3 different shades of green.
Yes. So no, 74 is not the one. Again, if it's the one that I think that you're
It's the one
talking
that's
about, that is the current land use map that we have, that we've had for 20 some years.
But that can be updated.
We can update it, yes. But that's
Look at the ones
Olson
down.
is just using what we have been using all along. That being said, the reason we wouldn't use magenta, purple, magenta, that is associated with industrial. Green is always associated with residential, like varying colors
Oh, I know.
of green.
I don't
So
care.
I'm-
I don't care what colors you use, just make them distinctly.
Right, I'm just
separate.
letting you know, that's why so they're all going to be in the same gradient. I will ask them to make them bolder.
'Cause I'm pretty good at understanding graphics, but I had trouble with that one.
Okay?
So you said you had 5?
Yeah.
Move on.
One of the things I picked up watching the ACA stuff was definitions, an area to have all the definitions. That was in that on writing better documents. A definitions page or chapter. I don't know if it's too late to do that. It might be helpful.
Okay.
And not even so much, that might be helpful in this one, particularly as we get into the regulations, having all that defined specifically would help a lot. And get away from should. And I'm sure you watched that one. That had a lot of good points
Sure.
about verbiage.
So,
Definitions.
again, in a comprehensive plan, you won't find language like shall. It will always be should, because shall says you will do it. Should says this is a good idea. Maybe you want to follow up, or maybe you
No,
don't.
no, and that's fine. It's a comprehensive plan. When we get into the rules, we should never be
But
should.
that's a good one.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Our zoning and subdivision regulations are a separate document from our comprehensive plan. Our current zoning and subdivision regulations do have, Article 3 is your list of definitions, but
Understand.
yeah, we can talk to them. Did you feel like there were particular items that needed to be better defined, or is this just an overall comment?
Just overall, if you go through, there's certain things that people may not understand what the term is, which if you go through and,
Okay.
just a definitions page, you don't
No,
need
there's 3
to
different
define
reasons,
common
yeah.
terms, but what does it mean when you say a multiplex, whatever?
Okay.
Not everyone understands what that is. Things like that. Terms that people need to be able to understand when they're reading that goes, oh, yeah, okay, I know what a multiplex is now.
Okay. Another issue?
We didn't address climate change as probably something that eventually needs to be addressed. We've got the floodplains addressed in there. But as we go forward, it's something that we probably need. If you believe in the science, weather patterns are changing. The briefing on climate change was, I thought, exceptionally good. Where we're at CO2 levels now is the same as they were when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, and you know what happened to dinosaurs. It's caused by a different reason, but climate change is happening. We're going to get into, obviously we've seen more rains, all the lakes at their maximum level, Missouri River's still up, we're still holding water in some of the reservoirs, and we're looking at drought. Being a rural county on the most part, drought and too much rain could have an impact. And I don't know how we address it or something that's for future future uses out there. What can the county do? What is the county going to do? Or more lab in the planning, what can the county do, if anything, to address climate change? Because that's an issue. It's going to happen. The other thing that I thought was interesting was the innovation districts versus downtown. I don't know if you watched that one. That was something the county, I think we could do a better job of. If you go around Eisenhower, down Eisenhower, there was what? An industrial area, and then is there 2 now or 3? Plus we've got kind of a strip mall.
Yeah.
That's something we probably need to look at. Not now, for this plan, but in the future.
Let's stay on this plan right now, though. Discussing that. You have anything else?
Then it was fire protection was kind of, I don't know if we need to be any changes in the plan for any future county fire protection. If the commissioners are interested in that, there are obvious issues of fire protection in this county, as the council will tell you.
Yeah, I think I would let Mr. Van Paris answer that question about whether or not the county would be.
I know he's been knee-deep in that one.
Well, the county is considering the adoption of building codes. Those codes are generally very comprehensive with respect to electrical and structural aspects that relate to fire safety. I cannot speak for the board as to what degree, if any, building codes will be adopted, but it is certainly for consideration. And the board has, by and large, expressed a very strong interest in adopting such.
I don't know if you saw the fire protection part. Do you think that covers what needs to be covered for actual fire protection?
I think at this point, there are 2 aspects of fire protection, Commissioner Bartkowski. The one is what's actually in your building, mostly residential, and commercial structures are different, but it's the internal aspect. And then the external aspect, as I'd call it, and that would be the supply of water to provide fire flow for firefighting. And that's a much more complicated problem because of the number of public water service providers in the county and the difference between them as far as the degree to which they can provide services. I think as far as the current time, I think that is sufficient.
Good enough. That's all I had, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Got you covered?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Alex, you go
May
next.
Mr. Chairman, may I actually mention something about the flooding areas, the floodplains? I understand that FEMA is the director of information on floodplains and does updates like every 5 to 10 years. Do we have more authority than that to be able to expand theoretically the floodplain into somebody's property when FEMA says no, it's still staying so and so?
So as far as our regulations go, we can be more restrictive. We cannot be. We can't be less restrictive, but we cannot identify floodplains. That is certainly identified by FEMA. If a property owner were to dispute a floodplain on their property and say that they didn't think they should have it, there are steps they can take to have that removed if it is appropriate. However, I do not believe that there is any authority given to municipalities or counties to delineate their own floodplains.
Yeah, Alex.
Okay, with this future land use plan, I didn't know, we've kind of talked about it, and one of the dislikes in Group 6 was that planning and zoning tells you a policy, and then then you see others not following. Inconsistency. So that's something I've always talked about, is being consistent. I didn't know, are we going to follow basically this future land use plan to what it says and only allow that? Or are we going to still kind of bounce, or do we have a... I think that's more for like everybody up here and her also.
We really discussed this a little bit at the beginning. What's already zoned now is zoned now. This is what we would like to see, and where we would like to go, but what's zoned 2.5 acres now, even if that map shows it's 3 units per acre, if it's 2.5 acres now, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, somebody can just go and still do that. If it's 2.5 or 5, doesn't really matter. They have to do
But what
do what it is zoned now.
So I think somebody said earlier, I think it was Mr. Herring, about increasing and decreasing in zoning. So like if something is zoned currently as 2.5 or 5, are we going to allow them to do 3 units per acre, or even, and that was actually a question of mine, was why isn't there any 1 acres on here?
So let me try to parcel your question. So as Mr. Rosenthal stated, if this is a guiding document, this is not changing the zoning. So say that you own property and it is in the light pink area, which would be 3 units per acre.
Yeah.
However, infrastructure has not been extended there, and it's currently zoned RR 2.5. And you own 10 acres and you want to create 4 2.5 acre tracts. You can do that. We're not changing the zoning on it. Now, say you own property in that light pink area, which is the 3 units per acre, and you come to our office and you say, Crystal, I really want to rezone this to heavy industrial. I'm going to look at this map and I'm going to say, well, that's not even close. So our office isn't going to be supportive of that request, because that request is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan. Now maybe you say 3 units per acre isn't really possible because we don't have sanitary sewer there. The County Commission has directed staff to amend the sanitary code and say that 1 acre zoning becomes a possibility. I do not know if that is the case. This is just a hypothetical. And you say, I would like to rezone my property from RR 2.5 to R1. Well, that would still be within the general parameters of this plan. But what I would do first is I would contact the nearest city and I would say, hey, I know there's not sanitary sewer there, but what's the plan for it? Is there a plan for sanitary sewer? If the city said, oh yeah, here's our plan, and we expect to be there within the next 5 to 7 years or shorter. Well, at that point, my recommendation is going to be that the rezoning does not occur because we want to see that sanitary sewer extended. But if the city were to come back and say, we're not even close to being able to get sanitary sewer there for 25, 30, 35 years, at that point, it becomes a little bit tricky because I don't want to prohibit somebody from developing their land and asking them to adhere to something that is really impossible to do. So at that point, our office may be more willing to recommend approval to the R1 zoning district. Does that make, so that's what I mean when I say it's a living document. It is a guiding document, and it is something that we will give a lot of weight to. However, it doesn't predict all future conditions.
Okay. I just don't want, when we have a meeting, to hear, well, the comprehensive plan says this, so we're going to stick to it. And then the next person that comes in, we allow them to do something that doesn't kind of fit the future use. Because I think there's been some of that.
Well, like you say, we've always asked cities to tell us what their planning is, and a lot of them we don't hear back from. Some of them, I think, there was one time Tonganoxie, we had bigger tracks come up from in front of us. Tonganoxie said they didn't want us to do that, to change to approve those 2.5 acre tracks because it would stop their growth. Well, we asked them, well, when are you planning on being there? And they had no plans on being there. Said, just maybe someday. Well, we can't wait for someday.
Correct.
The next person wanted to do something with his property, so we approved it. If they would have said, we plan on having sewers there within the next 5 years, we would have looked at it a lot differently and tried to get that to them. The county and the cities have to work together to decide this. We need to hear their input from the city. If the city says, we are planning on having sewers to this location within the next 5 years, then the county has to take the responsibility of not blocking it. We're going to have to say, okay, this is coming. We're not going to block it by making 2.5 or 5 acre tracts in an area where the city can come in and do the three things per acre. So, but we all have to take in consideration the situation at the time.
Right, and I think that's important is we still have to look at everything on a case-by-case basis. And I appreciate what you're saying, Alex, but, I mean, Crystal, what's the life expectancy of this plan, 15, 20 years,
Formally close the public sessions.
Got it.
realistically?
Commissioner Denny, could you please repeat that question?
Yes. What's the life expectancy of this plan, 15, 20 years?
20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 20 years. I don't know, we don't know what's going to happen 1 year from now, let alone
Correct.
20 years from now.
Right.
And I think this is a guide, I think is what we're saying. But, let's just say if Leavenworth hits the jackpot and we get that space X thing or whatever, it's going to change everything.
Absolutely.
And so if we just say, no, I'm sorry, this is what the plan is, we can't do it,
Right.
I don't think we can operate like that.
No,
No,
that
you
would
can't.
be very unwise to operate that way.
Right.
And furthermore, again, that's part of the reason that we are going to, again, it is probably the biggest goal that I have, is that we legitimately review and update this plan on a yearly basis. It is something that has not been done in the past, like I said, and that's part of the reason, Commissioner DeMoro, that when things aren't properly upkept, it's hard to follow them. So this plan may very well change. And again, as Commissioner Denny was saying, if there were a large development or a major change in conditions, that could majorly change this plan. But again, we would want to work to adopt the plan, amend the plan, as opposed to just leaving it alone. But again, it is very much a guiding document, and it should be very, very heavily considered and weighed in all land use matters.
Okay. Yeah, that was it. And also just saying 1 acre in relations to this future land use. I think it would be a great idea for the whole county as a whole to consider 1 acre plots in areas.
Well, I don't think 1 acre lots on sewers, on septics is the thing we need to have.
But if we are allowing at roughly I-70 and 182nd in that area to do ideally residential 3 units per acre, I mean, why wouldn't you do, if there's no intentions in 20?
3 units per acre have to have sewers.
Correct, but the question is sewer in all of these spots right now?
No. That's why this is a guiding document.
That's why
So if Baser says, hey, we don't plan on having sewer to this location in 15 years, and they're residential 3 units per acre, I mean, 1 acre?
The answer is no. Period.
Well, no, the answer is not necessarily no, because that's the exact example that I gave just a few moments ago, is that if sanitary sewer is just not an option, then perhaps, but again, I also, want to take back to just a few weeks ago, the reason we don't currently have 1 acre zoning and why it's not shown here is because our sanitary code does not allow for it.
I remember talking about it.
So it would have been imprudent and unwise for the consulting team to put a zoning district on here that is largely unachievable under the current policies. That doesn't mean that going forward, if the Board of County Commissioners wishes to amend the sanitary code to allow engineered systems on 1 acres, it doesn't mean that this couldn't be amended. Again, it doesn't mean that in some of those areas that we wouldn't look at, perhaps if somebody came in and asked for a rezoning to 1 acre. But that's exactly, the point that I'm trying to make is, every Wednesday when our Board of County Commissioners meets and different issues come up, staff is directed to do, to amend this policy, to adopt a new policy, so it's a constant revolving change. There is no such thing as static planning. There's no such thing as static local government. So as those things adopt and change, and they change on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and then when we have a new Board of County Commissioners, when we have new commissioners come on, things can change very dramatically depending upon what, their goals are. So that's why, again, the guiding document, it is not a static document. It is something that we will have to, we'll have to consider in addition to the policies and the direction from the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay. And then my other question had in regards, it was page 84, and I've heard people talk about roundabouts out here and whether or not it ever happens, but I was telling Mrs. Sloop last night I drove 3 roundabouts in a row, and will we ever get there? Probably not. It was very busy, but it was honestly awkward to be going from 50 miles an hour to immediately hitting a roundabout. And I think something, and I don't know if it's stuck to roundabouts, but I think it'd be nice if they considered bridges also. Like you got I-70 and Turner Diagonal area. You got the bridges and you got to obviously go over. So it's not impeding the flow of traffic, because if you were to say, let's say at County Road 1 and K32 put a roundabout, I feel like you're going to have a lot of semis going through that roundabout and causing many accidents.
So roundabouts are not always the perfect solution, but oftentimes they are. A couple of things. The best way I know how to describe the tension between people and roundabouts is about 120 years ago, we were mostly riding in horse and buggy. But then somebody decided to build a car. And there was a period of time, right, where there were people who were riding on a horse and buggy were probably like, what are these cars? This is never going to last. This is the worst thing in the world. It's causing all sorts of problems. Well, here we are. I don't know anybody who still rides in a horse and buggy, right? So we adapt and we change. I know for communities that don't have roundabouts, they seem like very, they seem difficult to maneuver. They seem, a lot of times people want, as you know, a stoplight, a stop sign, something else. But roundabouts do have very specific purposes. They slow down traffic. They definitively reduce head-on collisions, thereby reducing significant injuries and fatalities. And they also keep traffic moving in a way that a stoplight or a stop sign cannot. Now, that being said, bridges can also do the same thing. A roundabout is exponentially less expensive than a bridge, not only to install, but to maintain. There are times, of course, when bridges are necessary over bodies of water and such, or over a highway or something like that. However, in the rural parts of the county, I'm not a traffic engineer by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't know that bridges would be terribly feasible. And again, roundabouts in the county, some places they might work great, and in other places they may not. I know in southeast Kansas, which is a very rural part of the county, very rural part of the state, there are roundabouts on major highways that are heavily trafficked by farm vehicles. They seem to be very successful. It does take some getting used to them. However, once we get used to them, they're usually pretty efficient for what they do. Again, they're not always the solution, but they're not the evil traffic device that they have kind of been, that many people feel that they are. So, and again, that section of the plan is a very high-level overview. It's my opinion that we need a full traffic study, and that's something I believe that we will be petitioning to the Board of County Commissioners in the near future.
Roundabouts are very common in Europe.
Yes.
Germany, France, Greece, Italy,
I like
all of them
them.
have them.
Do you?
I like them.
I just think there would be areas, and specifically looking at the County Road 1 project, I feel like they would be implemented probably strongly in that area. And I just think there might be certain places where a roundabout might be more dangerous than a bridge. So it's just something I wanted to note. So it was
Sure, and again,
for the record, basically.
Sure.
Anything else, anybody? My only concern on it, and I don't know exactly why it is, if you want to go back to the map, is what Joe brought up, is the 2.5 acres all along our affiliate roads and collector roads out in the county. I mean, I think it's promoting more driveway cuts, which we don't want. And it's all on roads that really are, I mean, let's face it, they're inefficient now. I mean, they're way too narrow. It's a poor sight distance. They're over-traveled already, and now we're going to put more houses on these roads. To me, that's the wrong thing to do. But otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the comp plan. I think we need to try to adhere to that and work with the cities to get the growth, because of all the groups I went to, and I wasn't on all of them, but I went to quite a few of them. I think I only missed maybe one or two, and I kept hearing that we want to keep all the development in the cities or close to the cities. So that's what I heard more and more times, and I think in the comp plan, your statistics showed that too, of the people who said that. So we need to work with the cities to keep development in there on sewers and save the country as country, and which most people in all the meetings we had and charrettes and everything pretty much sounded that thing, and improve our roads. And that's why I do agree with Joe again that we need to do traffic, do something about our infrastructure, our roads. Our roads need to be improved greatly. Any other questions or comments on it?
I have a quick question. Have we said, after we have approved this, is this going to go to the cities, or have we seen it before, or did somebody do a dog and pony show? Or?
So they have been provided with notification that we were moving towards adoption of this, and provided with the plan. I have not heard. No. Welcome.
Yeah, they were welcome to every meeting I went to. I know that.
Oh, yes,
And a lot of them had representatives there. Yeah. Well, if there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we approve DEV 20-109, the adoption of the 2020 Leavenworth County Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
Terry, seconded. A motion on the floor and a second to approve the case number DEV 20-109, the adoption of the 2020 Leavenworth Comprehensive Plan as written. Is there any further discussion?
Commissioner, sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
Did you formally close the public hearing?
I thought I did. Yeah, I did. Didn't I?
I think you did.
Okay.
I think I did.
Just
yeah.
wanted to make sure.
I'm pretty sure I did, yes. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I can't remember, but I thought, I'm sure I did.
Okay.
I just have one question before we vote on this. Crystal, would the comment about the colors on the maps, would that go as we approve this? Or is that...
Yeah, so I've made a couple of notes in here of things for them to update. One of the things is, like Mr. Herring stated, there are a few properties that were zoned as B2 or I2 that kind of got painted over, and that needs to be remedied. And then, yes, I can talk to them about the colors of the land use map, the maps they created. I do not think that the current land use map, the one that the zoning districts that we currently use, they're not going to change that because that's what we use. We can change that.
Yeah.
We can change that, but it won't be updated in this plan. However, the most important map in this plan is this one here, not the existing.
Got it.
zoning.
So the purple that's missing, that's down by the Kansas River and the tracks, and then up by the Missouri up
No.
in Lansing, that purple will be added?
No, so there's that note at the bottom of the map there. That
Mhm.
all that you're talking about, that's all floodplain, of course. We still will keep it labeled floodplain. However, there is a note down here that it is also industrial, and it remains industrial.
That it is mixed in there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is the case 20-107 or 109?
My thing says 109.
Yeah, but here
It
on-
says 109.
I'm going by this, so.
Yeah, the heading says 20-107, but the agenda says 109.
It's 109. I had a typo that nobody caught.
But going back to what you just was talking about the industrial, if it's zone industrial now, it's still zone industrial.
Correct.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
this is only proposed, so if somebody came in and wanted to do something industrial in that area, they could still do it, right?
There are some things that are allowed and other things, as you know, that
Well,
require
that would fit
special.
the I, whatever category they're in.
Yeah, yes,
So whatever is zoned, if it's I-2,
yes.
Rule 2.5, what it is now, even though this map shows it as different, it's still,
Right, so there's the caveat on the floodplain / industrial along the rivers. That
Well, on
that
that,
is labeled
yeah.
on the map. Those other properties,
yeah.
we need to get that changed, because we just don't want, we all know that, but what if we're not here in 15 or 20 years or something, and so those we want to get fixed.
Yeah, I know, every director has a different.
Well, Steve will be here.
Right, yeah. They might get rid of me, but they'll keep
term
you.
limits now, remember? We got term limits, I only can be here for, I don't know how many more years I got, but
I think you still have 20.
my term's up, but, yeah. But anyway, is there any other discussion on the motion?
Yes, I have one discussion I'd like to mention. We didn't mention in the motion about the finding of facts. And I think we need to mention in the motion about the finding of facts
I'll accept that.
and staff recommendation, if you would, please. I know that just says one, but I think, and staff recommendations, because staff's made a number of recommendations in there. If that's acceptable.
Those recommendations, weren't they part of the discussion we've had here tonight?
Well, it says finding of facts, but I just want to make sure per staff recommendations also.
Accept that?
Yes, I accept
Okay.
that.
Crystal just said she was doing it. Yeah, Crystal said she was doing it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, John Matthews.
Yes.
Harry Bukowski.
Yes.
Mark Denning.
Yes.
Alex Tomorrow.
Yes.
Will Smith.
Yes.
Rocky Hippel.
Yes.
Jeanette Holloman. Jeff Spink.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 9-0. The Board of County Commissioners will consider this item at 9 a.m. on October 28, 2020, in the Leavenworth County Courthouse. Any person wishing to be present for this meeting needs to call the Board of County Commissioners office to be put on the attendance list. Anything else?
No, sir.
See you next week.
See you next week.
All right. We're adjourned.